Clutch Trucker filmed in front of a live and not near as furry studio audience. Yep, that's Rusty, the world-famous meatball dog, now freshly cleaned and groomed. Ain't he purty? Yep, he's looking good. They had to shave all the fur off of his ears because it was so matted, so that's why his ears look a little funny. But it's, warmer weather now, so he'll be fine. He'll be fine, right? And I even got him a new collar, because his old one was getting kind of worn out. So this one's kind of a sporty look to it. He seems to like it all right. So there you go. He's groomed and cleaned. I'm finally cleaned. I'm not groomed. I need a haircut. I hacked at it when I was in the shower room with my razor trying to trim a little bit of the hair, but I didn't have a pro doing me like he had doing him. Hey YouTube, Clutch Trucker here. Thanks for tuning into another edition of the Clutch Trucker channel. All right, things are wonderful in the Clutch Trucker world. My chugging issue is fixed! Yay! 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 Happy, smiling presents and crap! Yay! Fantastic! Oh, and not only that, a bonus issue that I've been dealing with for well over a year that I had literally given up on is also fixed. So here I am at the TA. There's proof right there. TA. Look how expensive fuel is in Pennsylvania. They just don't get it. I never fuel in Pennsylvania because of that. Pennsylvania, you should figure that out. Anyway, yep, parked here in Brookville, Pennsylvania. Didn't plan on going this far, but I had to make sure the fix had actually taken. Alright, so let's back up a little bit. When last we spoke, and I did that last video, I had this changed out, which is the fuel pressure regulator or fuel check valve that goes on the back of the engine on the return line leading back to your fuel tank. So when it has extra leftover fuel that is now not using, that goes back into your tanks. The advantage of that kind of system is it keeps your tanks, fuel tanks warm when you're running your truck during the winter months. So that's why if it's really, really cold, like 20 below zero, I will not use the APU. I'll run the engine all night just so that fuel keeps circulating around, keeping my tanks warmer and keeping the fuel from gelling up. Okay, so he replaced this, and I immediately went out on the road to test to see if it fixed the chugging issue. And unfortunately, no, it didn't. But it fixed something else that I've been dealing with for well over a year that I had literally given up on, and I didn't realize that was fixed until today. I've been having an issue with my engine brakes where it wouldn't go into high. I've only got a high and low on this truck. A lot of trucks have a high, medium, and low, meaning it fires your 2 cylinders, your 4 cylinders, or your 6 cylinders in engine brake or compression brake mode. Mine only has the 2 and the all 6. It will do it if I have it in the high and it's doing the graduated thing where I have the cruise on. It will do a 4, but only that way. But what was happening is a good half the time, and always when I needed them most, the engine brakes would not go into high. If I was pulling a heavy load and I'd gone up a big hill and I'm going down, it would only give me low. The engine brakes, that's one thing about this Detroit Series 60 engine, the 12.7 liter I'm not a huge fan of, is the engine brakes aren't really all that great in the first place. When I drove a Cummins for well companies, their engine brakes on a Cummins are amazing. You can have a full load and hit it on high, and you won't have to tap your brakes at all going down the steepest hill. It'll really hold you back. Detroit's engine brakes aren't as good on the Series 60. However, I rely on those. I need those when I'm going down a heavy hill and high, but a lot of times it wasn't going into high, and so I'm having to do the stab braking going down the hill so I don't burn up my brakes. And you've seen guys burning up their brakes who are laying on them the whole way down the hill. Not the way to do it. You stab brake. That's where you stab it real hard and you slow down about 5 miles an hour. You let it go. You catch back up about 5 miles an hour and you stab it again. That's why it's called stab braking. Anyway, my engine brakes were not going into high, and I've been dealing with that issue for well over a year. And kind of like chasing down this chugging issue, I tried damn near everything. I replaced my accelerator pedal because I thought maybe its attenuator wasn't reading right, and that was causing the problem. I checked both sensors on the brake and clutch pedals to make sure they were operating properly. I changed out both solenoids in the engine underneath the valve cover because that's what fires the engine brakes. They're oil fired through these solenoids. I had replaced both of those, and I had pretty much given up over a year ago. I just gave up, and I'm like, okay, I guess this engine unfortunately is never going to have the full engine brakes right when I need them ever again. Well, it turns out this little thing fixed that. Now, I showed you in the last video, if you take it apart, there's the little thing inside, okay? It's on a spring, and if you pull it out, if I can get it out here, come on, baby. There's an O-ring in there that, as I showed in the last video, and it's hard to see on the video here, but the O-ring, need to get the light right on top of it, but the O-ring is broken, so it doesn't go all the way around. You can see right there towards the top, maybe, if I can get it in the right spot. You see that right there? You can see that break in it, right by my mouth. Okay? So that is what was causing my engine brakes to not go into high, especially when I needed them, because it's under pressure. And so that's how it would force the oil into the solenoids to make the engine brakes work. Little did I know that this thing, replacing this, was going to fix my engine brake issue, or I would have done that over a year ago. I had no idea. But, you know, all day today, I've still got a heavy load on. All day today, anytime I put it into high and I just left it there, and my engine brakes would go on, they went into high every single time. So I'm convinced that replacing this fuel pressure regulator or fuel check valve on the back of the engine has now fixed my engine brake issue. So I got a bonus fix out of that. And it was done by, this guy in Michael Brandt. Not only is he a technician, but he's a master technician. Ooh. At the DA in Whitestown, Indiana. He did a real good job. He replaced that fuel pressure valve, or fuel pressure regulator, fuel check valve on the back of the engine. He did it within 45 minutes. He says it's a lot harder on like a Columbia or something. My Coronado luckily has more room between the firewall and the back of the engine. But bonus, so I'm really glad I had that changed. I had no idea, because like I say, I had completely given up on the whole engine brakes ever working properly ever again, but now they do. So that was a bonus fix. Okay, back to the meat of the video, which is the chugging issue. What in the heck caused that? Okay, so as I showed in the last video, the only other thing I hadn't changed out that I still had with me was the fuel check valve on the Davco fuel filter housing unit, okay? And so I had the new one, and I've got the old one right here. Okay, it's kind of blackened. It used to be white, I think. You can see the ball is still in there, and the spring is still in there. All right, here I am at the Truck World in North Jackson, Ohio. Just pulled the assembly out of the Davco that's got the check valve in it, and you can see the ball is there, the spring is there, all as it should be. I'm gonna go ahead and put on the new one just for shits and giggles. All right, so there's the new one on there. I don't have any thread tape, so I'm going to see if they have some thread tape or goop inside. And we'll stick this back on. I really don't think this is the problem, because the other one, I was expecting to see the spring gone or the ball warped or something, and it all looks fine. So of course I'm sure this repair won't do a damn thing. And there's the Davco. Fuel's all drained out of it and everything. And I took the thing out on the side, which is right here, put on the new check valve, put tape on it and all that. So now we're just gonna stick that back in where it needs to go, slowly and carefully. And then we start spinning it on. Alright, gotta get the wrench. Okay, got that back on tight at about the same angle. Then we'll just stick our fuel line back in it. Get that all the way down to that collar. Shake it back and forth. And we bring the bolt down, and we're tightening that down. Okay, you can see where I tried to put the fuel line back in. Problem is the fuel line was kind of pulling a little bit. When I tried to put the collar back down and tighten that up, I didn't get it on straight the first time, and it stripped the threads on the inside of that thing. Well, now I was kind of dead in the water. I couldn't now get it tightened down. I tried and tried and tried. I stood back and stopped for a little bit and was just kind of looking at the engine overall, and then I was thinking, you know, I've been looking up all this information on the internet, trying to figure out what the hell else could possibly be wrong. My plan at that point was I was going to park at the TA in Youngstown. There's a FIDA Freightliner, who of course was already closed today because it was Saturday, and they closed at 4:30 p.m. Anyway, so I figured, all right, there's a few other sensors on the engine that I could probably replace myself, and I was just going to go over to the Freightliner the next day and buy them all. There is a an air pressure sensor that goes in the manifold, right where the intake is and everything, and it's just next to where this hose that I always have to replace. Look back a few months, I replaced that while I was in Salt Lake City during that giant storm, and it's the wastegate trigger pressure thing for the turbo. It's this hose that comes off the compressor and goes into the intake manifold. Well, there's an air pressure sensor there that plugs into the ECM. That could have been the problem. There's also a coolant temperature sensor on the opposite side of the engine behind the turbo. That could have been the problem. There's also a fuel, I think this was a fuel temperature sensor that's screwed on to the fuel pump, which of course I had replaced a couple of months ago. That also could have been the issue. So I was going to go in and buy all three of those and say, you know, because I figured I can replace all these, let me try these. Well, as I'm looking at the intake manifold up there, I noticed, there's that air pressure sensor, and I don't know why I did it. I put my hand on it and it wiggled. It frickin' wiggled. It was loose. So just with my hand, I was able to screw it in tighter. It had the Teflon tape on the threads, but it was kind of coming off. I took the wrench and tightened it down some more, and of course some more of that Teflon tape was kind of coming out. And just something inside my head said, you know what? This may be the issue. What do you think? Well, like you saw in that video, I had replaced the fuel check valve on the Davco anyway. Why not? Well, now I couldn't get the fuel line to thread back on, and so I knew the TA was only another 6.5 miles up the road in Youngstown. Well, now I knew I had to go up there to get a new compression sleeve and nut to go on to the fitting there on the Davco for the intake on the fuel coming in. And so I figured, well, while I'm there, I had already bought some more of this thread tape, which there it is. Yeah, good catch, Clutch Trucker. Because I had to put new thread tape on that, fitting with the new check valve on the Davco. So I had some of this, and I was going to just go ahead. I first just wanted to get to the Youngstown TA. I wanted to fuel up again, and then I wanted to get the new sleeve and fitting for the fuel line coming in and get that put back on, tightened down, and then I was going to retighten, take out that air pressure sensor, put new Teflon tape on it, and then crank it back up in there, crank it real hard, and then plug it back in. Like I say, I cranked it pretty good, and then plugged it back in. I just had to kind of shove the fuel line back down into that fitting and hope it held for the next 6 miles to TA Youngstown, which it did. But guess what? Between the North Jackson, Ohio Truck World and the TA Youngstown, I pushed it hard, even though I knew that fuel line wasn't all the way in there, and it wasn't chugging. It wasn't chugging. Was this the fix? So I get to the TA Youngstown, I fuel up, and then pulled forward. Yes, I pulled forward after fueling. How about that, drivers? I know a lot of you assholes don't do that. Pull forward after fueling, to be courteous. Anyway, pulled forward and went ahead and opened the hood and took the fuel line back off, looked at the fitting again, and because it had a sleeve on there because it's a compression fitting. I couldn't take the threaded part off to bring it into the shop to say, give me one of them. So I had to guess on the size, and I was guessing a 1/2 inch. And I went in, I bought that, and it was a big $3.20. Brought it back out, and no, that's the wrong size. Okay, so walked back in again and said, all right, it needs obviously like a 5/8 inch fuel line fitting, and sleeve. Bought that was $3.73 or something like that. Went back out and then tried to get the, the compression ring off of that fuel line so I could put the new compression ring on and the new fastener to put it down to the housing on the Davco. Well, I couldn't get the damn compression ring off of the fuel line. So I walked back over and said, look, if I just pull up here, can you guys help me out? They weren't busy at all. They said, yeah, we got a tow truck coming in, but until they get here, we can help you out. So there's two mechanic guys, 2 technicians who were willing to help me out. And I pulled up in front of Bay 1. I pulled nosed in just a little bit. We opened up the hood again. And what they did is, they had to cut off a little bit of the fuel line to get rid of that compression ring, because I had kind of mangled it anyway, trying to wedge it off of there. And so then they said, let's put a 45-degree angle coming from the Davco instead of the straight down one, because it was pulling the fuel line anyway as it was. And that way we can pull a little bit of the fuel line, we can cut that off, and it'll come in at a better angle. And, then if you ever have to take it off again, which you may, to change out that, check valve, why not? Then it'll be easier to do, and it'll be at the right angle. I'm like, hey, I'm all for that. So those parts together were like $10 and some change. I've spent a total of $23 on these little parts. I kept the others. I always keep other parts. I said, yeah, I'm not giving these back to you. I'm keeping those other ones because there may be a fitting in the future I need to use these on. So I always keep the extra parts. So anyway, they put that on for me, and they didn't write it up as, having to do it, because that would have cost me at least a half hour of labor, which is a hell of a lot cheaper to TA or Petro than a Freightliner, by the way. But they were nice enough to do that and just help me out. So once they did that, I gave each of them $20, the 2 guys who were helping me out. If someone's going to help me out like that, I'm tipping you. I tipped Michael at TA in Whitestown $20 for doing a great job on changing out this thing, the fuel pressure regulator. If you do a good job for me and it's not costing me a lot of money and you saved me some cash somehow, like these guys did tonight, yeah, I'm tipping you. So here, go have a couple beers on me. Why not? So anyway, then while they were going to get the other part, I pulled out the air pressure sensor, and I was trying to get the old, Teflon tape on the threads, get it out of there. And like I say, this is why I tipped these guys. So one of the guys came over and said, well, I got a wire brush. You want me to try to get it off with that? I'm like, hey, I'm all for that. Please go ahead. He goes, cleans it all out, puts new Teflon tape on for me, and hands it back to me. So I shove it up in there, crank it in, and I tighten it down with the wrench, then plug it back in. And at this point, my fuel line is now plugged back into the Davco filter that we have now changed the check valve on. Like I say, I don't think the check valve was ever the issue, because the new one looks just like the old one did. So then pulled forward to get out of there. Like I say, it cost me a whole $23 plus tipping each guy $20. It was well worth that. So then I decided, well, I was going to stay there in Youngstown, but now I wanted to drive and see if this really was the fix. So I decided, well, I'll go to the TA in Brookville. Went ahead and reserved a spot here, was where I am tonight. They said exit 87, I think. So I knew that was a good, 95 miles from where I was, and very hilly. Up and down, up and down. So this would be a true test to see if this really was the fix. Before I close the hood back up, I did take some video to show you where this air pressure sensor is. So let's look at that right now. So there it is, right there. That was the little bastard causing all the trouble. Right next to the hose with the wastegate issue. I have to replace that hose about every 3 months or so. Here's my new fitting on the Davco, leading from the fuel line from the tanks in now at a 45-degree angle, a much better angle. And looking back there, yep, see, there it is, right next to that wastegate hose to the right. That's the little bastard that was causing all my issues. So, got out on the road. I'm running hard. I'm pushing it as hard as I can. Going through the gears pretty quick. It's not chugging at all. And as the further I kept going, I'm just sitting there going, I can't believe it. That it was something so simple and stupid that just was loose. But that was it. And I didn't have to buy any more sensors. I didn't have to spend any more money. Just $23 on parts to fix the airline since I took it off and I was a schmuck and tried to tighten it down with it not threaded on correctly. That was my fault. $23 on parts for that. Tipping each of these guys $20 a piece, and tipping Michael in Whitestown $20, and turned out that was well worth it because that fixed my engine brake issue, which I'd been dealing with for over a year and had completely given up on. But now, here I am. I drove 95 miles up and down with a super heavy load in Pennsylvania, and it didn't chug at all. It was performing exactly as it's supposed to. I couldn't believe it. I'm still kind of dumbfounded that that was it. Air pressure sensor. Makes sense if you think about it, because just like the wastegate going into that manifold that helps on the turbo, when that hose goes out, I lose boost on the turbo. Well, this thing senses the pressure, air pressure, on the intake manifold coming from the air-to-air boot from the charged air cooler, and if it doesn't sense the right amount of air pressure, it feeds the ECM, engine control module, which then fires the injectors accordingly. Well, it was loose. Air was seeping out of that thing, right past it. So it constantly was giving mixed signals to the ECM, which, funny thing, caused my chugging. And once I tightened it up in there and it got a constant real read on the air pressure, the engine runs like a frickin' top. I've got those new injectors that I put in, a little over a week ago at this point, almost 2 weeks. And it's running great. The engine hasn't run this good in a couple of years. But with new injectors, and now I finally fixed the chugging issue, and bonus, my engine brakes are now working like they should. Holy crap! Ha! Clutch Trucker's happy. So the moral of the story is, if you are having any kind of a chugging issue, and just simply the chugging issue. Now, a lot of these other things that I fixed, like the vents on the fuel tanks, I know one of them was severely clogged. That helped the issue a little bit. All these other things I did. New fuel pump, probably couldn't have hurt at 750,000 miles. New injectors, they were due. A lot of guys changed them out at 500,000. I waited till damn near 750 to do it. Needed the new injectors anyway. The new housing on the Davco, the cleared housing, did I need to replace that? Probably no. But, what the hell, it wasn't that much money. What else did I do? Yeah, the fuel pump, like I say, the pressure regulator, that fixed my engine brake issue. I changed out the air filter. I did other things, and all probably around due for an engine with this kind of miles on it. But now my chugging issue's fixed. I'm ecstatic. To quote friends, with Joey's agent, Estelle, "Joey, have you ever seen me ecstatic?" And he says, "No." She goes, "Well, here it is." So, a loose air pressure sensor on the intake manifold, the air intake manifold leading into the engine, that was the whole chugging issue. I don't know how much that sensor would be to replace. Probably not that much. Probably couldn't have been any more than $20-30. Those type of sensors on this kind of type of engine usually aren't that much money. So, if I ever get the chugging issue again, I know exactly where to look first. And drivers, if you're having issues on your Detroit like me, with the engine brakes not going into high all the time, fuel pressure regulator or fuel check valve on the back of the engine. That'll fix that one. So there you go. 2 things. Now I know, if those issues ever come up again, exactly where to go. They're fixed. I'm ecstatic. I'm kind of dumbfounded, because after it's almost anticlimactic. After chasing this issue now for so long, and bang, I just kind of stupidly stumble on it tonight when I'm changing out the check valve on the Davco. I'm just looking at the engine going, I don't know. And for some reason, like I say, I reached my hand up there and grabbed that, and it moved. And that was the issue. Wow. All right, well, what started out to be kind of a bummer day. I was really kind of down and bummed this morning, but then got Rusty to his appointment. He got groomed, and he looked so much better. That picked me up a little bit then there. And then, of course, once I found the problem, and the truck is now fixed and running like it used to. It hasn't run this good in at least a year or more. So, it's a beautiful thing. Yay! So, Clutch Trucker's happy, baby. Thank you. Oh, yeah. So, the relief is just like, giant, huge weight gone. Gotta love it. Thanks for tuning in. As always, please subscribe. Please like and comment if you would like to, but only if you'd like to. Don't forget about Clutch Trucker on Instagram, Clutch Trucker on Twitter. We've got Coffee and Patreon down in the description if you want to help support the channel. We'd appreciate that. And as always, sniff that magic YouTube fairy dust. Clutch and a freshly groomed Rusty out. Hey, what you cooking here, Ma? Huh? Beer. Oh, with noodles. Great idea. Alrighty, come and get it. The bacon strap. Yay! Come on, a little higher. There you go. He got it. Looking so pretty with his new collar, cleaned and groomed, and munching on the bacon strap.